that was the message I got. Charles was standing there with my coach, like looking all smug. It was just horrible. I wanted the ground to eat me up.
Hello, I'm Chris Brown, and this is the My Defining Moments podcast. In each episode, a sportsperson will be joining me to discuss the highs and lows of their career, while singling out 5 defining moments. In this first episode, I'm joined by British 800 metres runner Marilyn Okoro. Throughout her career, Marilyn has experienced the highs and lows of elite sport. She's a national record holder in the 4x400 metres relay and over 600 metres, and has many world and European medals. Some of her medals have been reallocated in later years, including an Olympic bronze medal from Beijing 2008, which she only received in 2018. Doping has also marred other parts of her career and affected her on podium funding. She was also controversially not selected for the 800 metres team at the London 2012 Olympics, despite having 5 of the 6 qualifying criteria. Marilyn has also previously spoken out about the culture of fear within UK sport. Charles van Commenee, the UK performance director during most of her career, once described her as naive and unprofessional. Marilyn has been through many things during her career, so let's dive in and see what she has to say.
Hi, Chris.
Hello, how are you?
I am great, thank you. Yeah, not too bad.
Well, thank you for being on the podcast. So basically, this podcast is about your defining moments of your career. I know you picked 5 for me, and yeah, we're going to go through your life and career and pick them out and just discuss a few other things along the way.
Let's do it.
Before we start, I usually like to try and talk about something that's going on in the world at the moment.
Sure.
Obviously, Black Lives Matter has been in the news a lot the last few months, and also recently in like other sports, especially in the UK, there's been a lot about the culture of fear and is the government too strong trying to get medals, and is success coming ahead of athlete protection? And I just wondered if you had any opinions on any of those things to begin with.
Oh, well, you know me, Chris. I've always got opinions. There's so much going on, isn't there, at the moment? What 2020 has just been crazy, but I like it. It's shaken up a lot, and often when change is about to happen, it takes something pretty fundamental and pretty epic to sort of be the catalyst. So the Black Lives Matter movement, obviously, super personal to me. I love that this generation are, this is what they know about sort of vocalizing their opinions, and also, taking responsibility for each other. I think that's what this calls for. So, it started with, I guess for us, really with George Floyd and all that kind of upheaval. But then what it's done is it's opened and shone a light on, everything that's going on. And for us in the UK, yes, racism definitely exists. It's not just a problem over there. And it's, everyone's now really looking a lot closer to home, and, I've got some fantastic allies and friends. I've often been someone that's been in white communities. I went to a school where I was pretty much the only black girl for many years. So it's great that these conversations are happening. They need to happen for change to happen.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously we saw last week with Bianca Williams, and she seemed to speak out, which I thought was quite brave, given that the world of social media, there's a lot of backlash to that kind of thing. And I mean, to speak out like that and to get, an apology, I guess, was something, but probably wasn't enough. But what did you think about that? I mean, have you been pulled over a lot or anything like that?
I haven't. Surprised, because I drive Miss Daisy, but it made me cry. That was just another thing that brought it close to home. And I think what each incident does for people is it pulls on certain traumas. So for me, it got me when she was crying out for her son, and the dismissal by the officers, because, I understand that separation from family, and they don't realize the impact that has, on the individuals and also that child. So I was really outraged when I saw that. And I'm really proud of Bianca for, speaking out and standing her ground. And yes, they've got an apology, but so much more needs to be done. But I believe there's going to be an inquiry. And what's important is that she's done that and she's got this platform. So, it's not just going to be her case, in isolation. They're going to look into other cases as well. And I think that's how you really use your platform and, really sort of come about instigating change. So as traumatic and as painful it was for her, she's done something amazing for the future as well.
Yeah, exactly. And again, just recently with the whole culture of fear within UK sport, a lot of governing bodies have been, up against it a little bit lately, especially gymnastics, regarding how they've not put the athletes' welfare ahead of, medal success. Obviously, you probably experienced a little bit of that maybe in your time, do you feel?
100%. So, I'm kind of on this quest at the moment to sort of really look at what it is to be an elite athlete. And, we've really struggled with welfare in sport in the UK, but I think it is a worldwide problem. But, obviously I stick to my experiences and what I know and what I've seen over the years. And I feel like I could have been treated so much better. And who was caring for my welfare? Who was caring for Marilyn, the individual? So it's great that this is actually being highlighted and people are being held accountable, because they haven't for so long and they've just been getting away with it. And the culture really needs a shake up and really needs to change. And I watched Athlete A recently and I just thought, it's not enough to just say, well done, Maggie, and all the other gymnasts for speaking up. And that's happening over there. It's happening a lot closer to home than many of us know in several sports. And, I'm having lots of conversations with people because this is what I want to go into. I'm so passionate about athlete welfare, and the same stories are coming up. May not be the context. Everyone's different. Everyone has their own narrative, but the same sort of athletes are just commodity. That kind of theme is coming up over and over and over, and it's time for a change. And yes, there's business involved, but lives are way more valuable than any medals.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you feel like, did it get better during your career, or do you feel it was as bad as it was, 20 years ago?
No, I mean, I had a bit of a rude awakening, I'm probably going to get into it, 2012, about, the sport and the industry that I was in. And I think we kind of come into it a bit sort of, well, I did. I came into it very naive and just dream chasing. And you don't realize that actually, unless you create that solid network around you, no one really cares. That's how it feels. And so I'm just at a place where I've kind of come out of a really low trough and realizing, a lot about myself, a lot of self-awareness, but also just trying to finish my career on my terms, but also learn some really key lessons that I can pass on to the next generation about how to be an elite athlete. And, the fact that they are more than just their sport, and they should be speaking up and demanding, everything they're entitled to, because, just because you're a good athlete, there's still so many layers to you, and all of those layers make you the athlete you are and need to be cared for and attended to.
And well, hopefully you can crack on and get that sorted if that's what you want to go into.
Absolutely. I feel like I am my first case study. I've experienced it, so I'm coming from a place where I really understand the needs of athletes. But yeah, absolutely. I'm working with some amazing people, the girls at Brand Blue Sport. We're trying to sort of look at, what it is the athletes need, and, for a variety of sports. And that's definitely something that needs to be out there ASAP.
Okay, so like you said, we'll probably discuss some of this as we go along. But yeah, let's crack on and just, first of all, just start by telling me how you got into athletics, when you first discovered it, and was that your first love when it came to sport?
Trip down memory lane. So athletics was not my first love. A game called lacrosse was my first love.
Oh, wow.
But it led me to athletics. So I grew up in northwest London, an area called Stonebridge Park behind Wembley Park. So most people have heard of Wembley. Stonebridge is just tucked behind it. And, it's a bit of a rough area, a lot of low-income households. My mum came over from Nigeria in the 70s to give us the best possible start she could, to be honest. And life was pretty tough. And at 10 years old, I got the blessing to go to a boarding school because my dad, who I don't have much to do with my dad, but that was, his gift to me. And education is really important to African parents, basically. I think my parents' dream was to be a lawyer, a doctor, or a pharmacist. typical Nigerian parents. But Abbots Hill, which was the school I ended up going to at 10 years old, was just like this playground of opportunity. And I saw there was more to life than the hardship that I knew until that point. I was also quite lonely as a child, so it was just amazing to have like all these sisters. My year group was pretty small, and we were probably about 10 of us were boarders out of 20. So it was just like an amazing community. And that's kind of where I was able to flourish. And I tried all different sports. I love tennis, netball, lacrosse was my favorite. I love team sports, to be honest. And I just remember after one PE lesson, my PE teacher said to go along to running club. So I wasn't so keen because it was on a Friday at 4:30, and I was thinking, oh my gosh, but then what the hell do I have to do? It's a boarding school. And it got me out of half an hour of prep. So I was like, okay, I'll go to running club. And I'm so glad I did, because that's where I met my first coach, George Harrison. And, he was the one who saw my talent. I wouldn't necessarily, say that I loved running to begin with, because it was so hard. And I hate cross country, and we kept having to run up and down the lacrosse pitches. I thought, what's the point in this? But he also taught me some amazing lessons in dedication, hard work. He always would tell me hard work outdoes talent that doesn't want to work hard. And he was the one that really sort of sowed that Olympic seed. For me, I need a challenge. So the fact that he thought I had the talent to get to the Olympics was what kind of hooked me. Because up until that point, I didn't know anyone or hadn't even heard of the Olympics. So thought that would be cool. Let me see if I can get to this Olympics. However, my mother, who I always talk about, she wasn't too interested. I was sent to that school to become a lawyer or doctor. So she didn't really share in that dream or vision. She didn't understand it. And I understand her fears at that time. So she, I guess, was my first no. I always talk about the power of no. And she was my driving force to want to prove her wrong. But she also taught me all I know about being hardworking. She's a single mum of 3, and she just always found a way in spite of any barriers we faced. So, yeah, that's a bit of insight into my beginning. And George Harrison was just pivotal at making sure I stayed in the sport, and, any sort of thing I lacked in terms of getting around to training or getting to competitions, even pocket money. So essentially, he was my dad in the sport and off, out of sport as well.
So how long were you with George for? What was the tenure of your relationship?
So George, oh gosh, when did I go to Abbots Hill? 1995. 10 years, really, 10, 11 years until 2006 when I made the Commonwealth Games. So obviously I had really close contact with him all through Abbots Hill days, and then I went on to a sixth form boarding school, so we're a bit further apart. I would come back in holidays and for exec weekends, and then I went to the University of Bath. So again, I just kept getting further and further, but the whole time, he would coach me over the phone. He would write my program down and send me letters, because it was letters back then, and just kept really good contact. And I would rope in some of the boys at school, because my next school was a boys' school with girls in the sixth form. And they would be my training partners. And then I would come home in the holidays and join in with the group. I'm a Shaftesbury Barnet Harrier, so George introduced me to my Shaftesbury family, and it was great. And then you just keep training. I was just enjoying it and loving it. George never put any pressure on me in terms of getting to any major championships. He was just, and I raced the 400, but then one summer, he kind of said, we're going down to Watford to run an 800. And I was like, what? He had this plan all along, and the way he trained me. And yeah, I think at that point I did run some for school, and I think I'd done the English schools at 800 and stuff, but I didn't really enjoy it. But then this lovely Watford Open went down, chucked me in with some boys, and I lowered my PB from 216 to 207. And he's like, that's why you're running the 800 from now on, young lady.
Doesn't sound like you had much of a choice in it.
I think with George, he just knew that it was something, if he asked me, I would just always take the easy option, because that's how I raced. I just wanted to do just enough. So he needed to show me. And obviously, if I hated it, he wouldn't make me do it. But, I think that's a pretty big chunk that impressed me. So I was like, oh, actually, this is my event.
Well, your first of your 5 defining moments was going to boarding school at 10 and obviously meeting George. So was it that light bulb moment that this was going to be your life now, that the sport was going to be your profession?
Absolutely not. No, not when you've got your mum telling you, stop running. She hated it. She really did. So I was always, mindful of what else am I going to do? Like, I need to this isn't a career. This is great that I'm doing this, but it may not work out. I was always very aware of the risks involved. And also when you don't have that sort of support and people that understand, it makes it really difficult. So I always, had my backup plan. I knew I needed to, I enjoyed learning as well. So I knew I always wanted to go to university. So it didn't really become real for me until I made the Commonwealth team, to be honest. That's when I thought, okay, let me be all in. And even then, my mum still didn't really care. I think it took getting to the Olympics for her to be like, okay, you're serious.
That was her light bulb moment, was it? When you became
Olympian?
Olympian?
I think it wasn't even like someone had told her that I was on the telly running. I think maybe at Crystal Palace before we left, and that was my PB race, and it's a bit of an emphatic win. And my aunt had rung her from across London, and she was just like, she was too embarrassed to say she didn't really know. And then she was like, "Wow, okay, you go, girl."
Okay, yeah. Well, you mentioned there that your kind of Commonwealth vest was like the first time you decided that this is my life now.
Uh-huh.
And what was that like as an experience going to your first major championships?
Oh my goodness, it was Australia, and I just thought it literally is the other side of the world. So I was really excited. Up until that point, I was a great university level athlete. I'd had some success at junior level at the 400, but in terms of the 800, I was literally just still finding my feet, and I had a really good win at Bucks, battling out with Lisa Zabriskie, and I thought, wow, I beat Lisa, and then went to the World Student Games. And I just remember just thinking, let me just take this round by round. I wasn't really ranked anywhere, to be honest. And I just kept getting through, and I sort of got to the semi, and then I got to the final, and then came out with a bronze medal. So that time was what they looked at to select me from. And obviously a pretty special person was retiring, and she kind of stepped down. So it made room for myself and Gemma Simpson to go to the comms. And I just loved it. It was a little snapshot of, what life could be like. And at this point, I was transitioning to AO Falola as a coach and agent. And so it was a bit of that sort of first taste of the professional side of it, but all the glitzy parts. And you're just around all these amazing athletes. And it's the first time I met people like Donna Fraser, Joe Marsh now, Danny Crates, who, they all were my training partners in the end.
That's a good training group you had going there. Like, did you learn a lot from like the people who, like Joe and Danny?
Yeah, absolutely. It was very elite. And I just remember being like super nervous. But they took me under their wing, and, I was just loving it. I love heat. So I was in my element. And, I just thought, little old me from Stonebridge in Melbourne. Wow. I'll have some of that, thanks. That's when I really started to believe, your environment is so important at, mindset and giving confidence. So I was in that elite environment, and I felt like, hang on, I fit in. Not only that, I went on to make the final, and I ran 2 minutes for the first time. So I think that really sealed the deal, because I was just like, okay, that 2:01 at the championship was not fluke. And I deserve to be here. And, 2 minutes is the holy grail in terms of 800-meter running. And also I had so many people that didn't think I could transition to the 800, and I just proved them all wrong, which is kind of something that I love to do.
And then obviously that summer in 2006, you were trying to make the European team. And I think, remember, there was not a race off at Crystal Palace for the third spot on the British team. And was that a bittersweet moment for you, because you broke sub 2 for the first time, but missed the team?
Yeah, it was a bit, I think it was, I mentioned her name the other day. Someone was asking me about the athlete that pipped me, I think Amanda Pritchard.
Yeah.
So it was, but I think because I was just running so well, and also I had the versatility of, okay, well, I didn't make it in the 8, but I can go in the 4. So that kind of softened the blow. But yeah, I didn't let it overshadow breaking 2. I just thought, okay, well, I need to get an extra time. And I'm still going. And it was, my first Europeans. I was a bit annoyed because it was so close. I was like, oh, I need bigger boobs. But hey ho.
It was like a 100th, wasn't it, or something?
Ridiculous, something like that, yeah.
But then when you got to the Europeans, so you ran the 4 flat and ran a personal best. Do you think, in hindsight, that was almost a blessing in disguise that you did the 400 there, because it showed that you were versatile and could easily drop into the relay when required?
I just think, yeah, it definitely was a blessing in disguise, because it did kind of establish me in the 400 meter ranks. I honestly have not really trained for the 400. It's just something that has always been in my back pocket. And, the season that I'm in now, I'm definitely exploring, how good could I be over the 400? I think it's something that, unfortunately, in the UK, we don't have many combination athletes, the 4-8 anyway. And a lot of our top girls are coming down from the endurance side of things. So it's definitely an area that was untapped. And I love that I could just be chucked in lane 8 and run a PB. But it's definitely something that's been underutilized in my career. So yeah, I loved Gothenburg. It was amazing. And obviously it sealed my place in the relay, which I've gone on to have so much success with. And being a team player that I am, I wouldn't change it for the world, because I love running that 4x4.
Yeah, and well, yeah, exactly. And you've had a lot of success, as we'll come to. But then 2007, you were first home champs at the European Indoors, and just missed the podium. What was that experience like?
I know. I was like, oh man. It was amazing. Birmingham is definitely one of my favorite indoor tracks ever. That's where Nicola ran amazing, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, it was literally the day before. I think Nicola ran that ridiculous 50
she's
flat.
always been just, I love watching her. I had the privilege and pain of running some 500s with her in warm weather training camps, and she's definitely just killed me. But yeah, it was amazing. You know what? I don't really think I went into these early championships fully understanding how talented I was, and actually believing that I could win races. I was just running, basically. So I love the crowd, and that's one of my favorite things about indoor running, because the crowd is so close, so you can really feed off of that.
And then you carried that form well into the outdoor season at the World Champs in 2007, running a personal best in the semi-finals. And just talking through your individual performance in Osaka.
Oh, I loved Osaka. It was I love racing that part of the world. Obviously, the weather's so conducive to my somatotype and my skin, and I was just feeling really good. I was a little bit gutted that I didn't make the final for the first time. I think it was kind of like, okay, had a bit of experience now, but you always want more. It was great running with some of the girls that I was seeing running some crazy fast times, and just chopping up and mixing it with them. So I guess on the individual front, I was disappointed. I really felt like, I should have been in that final. But again, I think that's kind of why I'm still going, because I just, at that point, I didn't have the confidence to actually believe that I could put myself there, that it was in my hands to run that race that could get me in there. So yeah, it was sad. But then to bounce back with the relay girls, I was so privileged and just over the moon. I was picked for the final 4. I did run out my skin in the heats. And then we got a bronze. I mean, I was running with some incredible teammates, and it's still the national record. So it just shows the caliber and quality that, we ran. I think mine was the slowest leg at 50.8 or 5. Yeah, and I'm really proud of that medal to this day.
Yeah, I was surprised when you gave me a list of your 5 defining moments. I wasn't sure if that would be on there or not, because I feel like that national record it's so good. It's like, I think it's probably the best third place relay finish maybe ever. I don't know. I think maybe only once it's been beaten as a third place, and that would have won many gold medals.
Well, do you know what? I think I'm just loving this podcast, to be honest, because it's really letting me hone in on, gosh, it's been a journey, and each turn has added a different layer. And something that I'm really realizing in the last 18 months is I just haven't celebrated my career enough. You kind of wait till you're already retired, and then you start to reminisce. But I need to do this have confidence for next year. So it's really, really helpful. So thanks.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, obviously, how did that come about then? Were you always in the conversation for it? Because obviously you had Christine and Nicola were 1-2 in the individual, and then
Yeah,
obviously Lee was obviously our third pick, and she was running really well that year as well. And obviously
yeah. Because
Donna Fraser was part of the team, and was it always between you and her, or did you have to prove yourself in the heats? How did it come about?
I've always had to prove myself, I think, and I get that because obviously I'm an 800 runner. But I think when it comes down to it, they're always looking for the strength leg. So being an 800-meter runner, that plays into that, and I had the speed. So I was always given the opportunity and a shot in the heats, and it was all about don't waste this and prove that you want it. And I'm always going to do that. So I think that one was pretty clear cut because I ran such a good heat. But there's been some contentious relay times. I think also I just, I would generally justify it because I'd be ranked, in the top 6 or whatever each year. But yeah, no, the girls were just running so incredibly fire that it was like, whoever gets to run in this, you better step up because, they're bringing 48 seconds to the plate. And that's what I love. I love that battle and that, digging deep. And I had a rolling start. So as long as there's no blocks involved, I am great.
Yeah, it was. I mean, yeah, it was a great race. Obviously, Nicola ran. I think she ran a 48 split or something. I think it's the
Oh,
fastest
yeah.
British relay split ever.
Oh,
So yeah,
yeah.
so you then after that you went straight on to the like world finals, the IAAF World Finals, and
Oh, yeah.
ran a big PB and came third, and nice big payday to finish the year.
Yeah, it was so good. I feel like it always fell around about my birthday as well. I'm in September. So that was always just like the last meet of the year, just have fun. And I just would always just try and run and beat the Kenyans, to be honest. So it paid off a couple of years in a row. And yeah, it's just like, it's been, however the year has gone, that was always such a nice way to finish.
Moving on to 2008, and this is your like second defining moment of your career is the 2008 Olympic trials.
Oh yeah, it was indeed. That's what at 10 years old George was talking about. So this was my moment. Olympic trials are always the worst championship every year for me. I've just built up this anxiety. I mean, chuck me in Olympic Stadium, I don't mind, but nationals, oh my gosh, because that's the gateway to what you've been working and focusing on and visualizing all year. So I tended to be really nervous. Obviously the 800 is it could go to a number of us every year, so it was just about me being on my game and executing my race. That year I was pretty blessed that I had a training partner in there with me, so we could kind of talk tactics, and she kindly led us out. And once that was activated, I knew then I could take over and judge the race where I needed to be. So I took over a lot earlier than we planned, but I could see she too was nervous, and actually I was feeling really strong and great that day, and I just wanted it so bad. So I just loved it. Just the crowd in the last 100 was incredible. And then to run so fast, in the UK was fun. It was just like, I've put my stamp on this and I've just made my first Olympic team. Wow.
Yeah, what a moment. And then obviously just before the champs, you're at Crystal Palace and you ran your PB, and again that must have been the perfect send-off to Beijing.
I love Crystal Palace. It's a great stadium. It's a shame it's not really used anymore for those big meets, because you could just pack everyone in there and it would just be such an incredible atmosphere. And I remember Faith, the Kenyan athlete, she was pacing me, and I just knew that I could just run my race and she was going to go out hard with me or for me. And as long as I hung on to her to 500, then, it was going to be my race. And that's essentially what I did. It's the way they hate for me to run in the UK, but, when it works so great. And I'm gutted. I watch it back and I'm just like, why did you slow down so much? Like, finish, run through the line, because I really could have run 156 that day. So yeah, that's a lesson to me.
But then you say you're on your way to Beijing, back to Asia again, and what was your first like Olympia experience? I mean, how did you savor that moment?
Oh, it was phenomenal. They've just pulled out all the stops. We always have an amazing prep camp. So we were in Macau for the prep camp, which we'd been to the year before. prior to the world champs. So that was a bit of familiarity. And I was just, I was in the form of my life, training. The last bits had gone amazing. I always do a 600 time trial. I was flying. So that was good. And then you kind of get transferred to the village, and then it's like, oh, wow. So first time Olympic village, this is what everyone's talking about, and you can see why it's the big one. And I think you have quite a while to get used to that and sort of, zone out of the distractions of home. But then it's like, okay, this is it. This is what we've been waiting for the last 4 years. Because for me, by then it was, it was like, okay, this is what this has been building to. But then I think back to, wow, that 10-year-old girl that George was telling could go to the Olympics. He was right. So yeah, I loved it. My heat was ridiculously early on the first round of the 800. And I just remember looking at Matola. I was like, oh, great. Just could they make it any harder? And I had Tamsin Lewis in there, but she was someone that I loved to race against because she always had this big smile. And anyone who knows me, I'm a smiler, and she was always so friendly. And she was probably one of the only ones that actually spoke. But I also knew that she was going to make it honest, and either her or I were going to take it out. And, fortunately for me, she took it out. And it was just from once I got in that stadium, that Bird's Nest is I've got two favorite tracks, stadiums, the Bird's Nest and Don Valley, which obviously don't use anymore. But it was just euphoric, and it was everything I'd imagined and more.
Yeah, what was it like racing against the likes of Matola? Because they were fast years those years, like 07, 08, you had Jet Koskei, and it was really quick.
Years, weren't they? Very interestingly fast years. Well, it was all I knew at the time, and who was I to question? I was just believing that I was trying to run as fast as I could, and they dragged me around to some fast times. But irrespective of what it is, everyone has to put their legs out there and run. I just feel like looking back, like, oh my gosh, like the power of being so naive. Like I was genuinely pushing my body, thinking, okay, maybe I'm going to run 152 one day following these girls. But no, it was I felt like every race was electrifying, and I did love to race. I'm a racer. Competition's why I do this. I'm not just a fun jogging, that's not me. When I retire, I probably will do very little running. There's other ways to keep conditioned and keep fit, but I love to race the 800 and the 400. So yeah, I enjoyed it. Whether I was running an 8 or I was pacing an 8 or I was running a 400 or the 4x4, I was always going to bring 110%.
And then, speaking of the 4x4, once again, you were into the team. We obviously again had Christine and Kelly Sutherton joined the team for the Beijing Olympics. And how were you involved in that? Were you always in the conversation to be in that team, or did you say that this is the Olympics? I want to be in that team.
So I think with me, it would always depend on where I exited the 800 rounds, and if I had enough recovery, then I was definitely in for a chance. So unfortunately, I didn't make the final. So I was like, okay, right, I need to put myself in good contention. And they kind of watch you train for the next few days and see who's taking it seriously. So there was no early partying for me. And I was really trying to put myself in contention of being selected for the final 4. I ran a solid heat. So I think that helped my case. But we were a massive squad that year. I don't know if you've ever seen the pictures of us. And there's a million bridesmaids. And then it depends on the individuals, how the girls go and things like that. So I was just so happy to get a run, and to be able to run the final. It's so much going on, so many emotions. So I think crossing the line when we did, we were all a little bit flat, and just a bit baffled, how could we go from such a amazing bronze medal last year, and then we become 5th this year. There's a big deflation, but that's championships for you, and that is track and field.
But then obviously it took a further 8 years for you to find out that actually was a bronze medal that you got that day. And what are your emotions about that? Looking back on that race now, do you feel like you missed out on that moment, or did you get it when they gave you your medals in the London Olympic Stadium 10 years later?
Yeah, the 10-year wait, I call it. So I guess how did that happen? That answers it, because it was just so, okay, we weren't expecting that, and now we know why. We were right to question how, I have mixed emotions. Something that happens when you come back from a championships is that if you're a medalist, you get some perks like getting upgraded, and you get to go to different exit when you get to the airport and all that kind of adulation. And I think sometimes if you haven't done as well as you'd hoped, it can be a very there's always the anticlimax when you're coming back, but when you haven't medaled or you haven't done as well as you hoped, you haven't got a PB, it's just so much lower to sink. And so it took me quite a little while to get out of that. I always plan a race quite soon after championship so I don't stay in that lull. But especially with that, because we did have such high hopes. So then to be told 8 years later, actually, one, it wasn't too much of a shock because that's what we expected of the Russians. I think the Belarusians were a bit like, who are they anyway?
Yeah, because that was it. I think because in 2007 you obviously beat the Russians to the bronze, and then in 2008 it was like, oh, okay, and now the Belarusians are here, and where did that come from?
Well, so for me, when I found out, it was just a bit of vindication, okay, right, there's a reason to that. And I think when I stood on the podium, I think it was July 21st, 2018. And I just thought, oh my God, all this time I was good enough. I think that was something that it just kind of helped me realize. At that point I was struggling. I was super depressed and I was really sad about how my career to date had gone, but I hadn't really taken the time to appreciate what I had done. And then just receiving that medal just was a confirmation that actually you need to be appreciative of what you have done. And hey, this is a medal that signifies, something great that, I didn't get it at the time, but I have it now. So what am I going to do with this? And that's kind of what made me want to come back into sport. And not that I'd officially left, but I think in my head I was just thinking, what next? But I didn't want to leave, with a bitter taste in my mouth. I wanted to leave on my terms. And that was just a confirmation that it's okay to think like that. It's okay to have a break. But if we're going to go back, we need to do it well. And we need to also train smarter and have the right support network around me. Because, as the journey went on, I realized that I wasn't always surrounded by the right people who actually cared about what happened to me. It was all about these medals, which when I didn't have the medals, what good was I to them? And that's a very painful lesson to have to learn. And hence why I'm just so passionate about athlete welfare. But it was, if there is a plan B, it was a great one because it was in the London Stadium, and obviously 2012 has some painful memories for me as well. And, my family and friends, I think, British Athletics gave us some tickets and they're like, how much you want? I was like, 20? Because the whole battalion came, but it was beautiful. It was a lovely occasion. And, I wasn't in my best physical shape, but to put on that tracksuit again and just be in that arena. And I just heard the competition was going on. I thought I need that one last time before I retire.
And then obviously because the medal target was missed by the athletics team in Beijing at the time, and now retrospectively we're up to about 7 or 8 medals from that champs. And obviously performance director Dave Collins lost his job because of that. And then in came Charles van Commenee. Do you feel in hindsight that would have almost affected your career had Dave stayed, or would it have made much of a difference?
Oh, I wish Dave stayed. This is no secret. I think Dave was fantastic. I think he did care about athlete welfare. And it had a very different feel when his successor came in. And it just changed the dynamics. And I think my career would have been different, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and obviously then 2009, Charles is the head of UK athletics and he's top coach, and you're in GB record shape for the European indoors that year, and describe that race and what Charles's reaction was to that race.
Oh yeah, I mean that's the first time I really kind of got a flavour of him really, and obviously I had a recent article in CNN, and they give him a right to reply, and I think he had a beautiful opportunity to just say, I messed up, I'm sorry, but instead his usual self. And I didn't really have too much to do with him. He was just this person that always made comments, And obviously, like, he's, you know, the big top dog that everyone else was carrying to. So, I mean, I wish he was at training and could talk to me like that, because that might have helped me train harder. I don't know. It was just, again, like I said, I just was running, and perhaps instead of directing these comments at the athletes, you look at the team around them, which he should be a part of if he wants to make comments, and ask what's going on. Because as far as I was concerned, I was just doing as I was told in my team. So win, lose, or draw, the team takes it, not just, and this is what upsets me when I see athletes taking the flak on their own, good or bad. You know, we've got Christian Coleman, absolutely no one is supporting him right now, because if they were, he would not be sort of displaying what's going on. And I just feel like, where are the agents, where are the coaches, where's the team, where's the welfare team? Also, you know, when you lose races, it's like, it's not like anyone sets out to lose, right? So it's going to be a blow. It's going to, you know, you're taking a lot of knocks in your confidence. So you need people who ground you and help you not let that low go too low, and help you think of solutions and how what's the process to the next thing? How are we going to get out of this, and how are we going to learn and move forward? And I just felt like that was a lot of stuff that was missing. I felt like when I won races, yay, thank God you didn't mess it up. And when I lost, it was like, well, what were you doing? What the hell were you doing? Why'd you run like that? And I'm very process driven, and I like solutions. I don't like wallowing in, you know, nonsense. Let's make it right. And I think that's why I always ran so well in the relay, because if I didn't quite get what I wanted at 800, I was like, hey, right, I'm a fast learner, let's fix that. And I get to be part of a team, and this is an amazing opportunity. So yeah, Charles's comments were, I was really struggling with anxiety from 2009 onwards in race scenario. And obviously no one really recognized that. I just had so much pressure suddenly. I didn't know I was ranked where I was ranked. I was just making another team and loving life. And so it was definitely not the plan to go out so hard, but at the same time, it is what it is. And I had to bounce back with the relay. So there was no way I was not going to do that. But I think it's in that scenario, he wasn't very professional. You pull the athlete aside and their team, and you find out what's going on before you just go and make willy-nilly comments in the press.
So what was that day like for you? Because obviously you went for a medal and it didn't work out, and then literally what was the turnaround before the relay? Because then you were straight back out there winning a medal for the team in the relay on anchor as well.
I think I had 40 minutes, which we had to think about before being picked for the relay anyway. And I was like, well, that's plenty of recovery. We work off 30 seconds recovery, so I'm sure I'll handle 2 laps after 40 minutes. But obviously I had a big fall, so just had to make sure I was okay and didn't let the team down. But the only thing that was hurt was my pride, to be honest. So it was like, get me back out there, let me run again. And I think, if I can remember correctly, the commentator was just saying, we probably won't see Maz. And then I did a stride across the screen. So don't ever count me out. Never. I was fine. I just wish I'd landed, you know, or fallen 20 meters forward. Because it was very, very nearly a different story. 700, I was like, oh man, I'm not going to hold this. But maybe I should have told myself I was. And yeah, when the Italian came past me, that was just like the final thing, and I over-rotated and then just hit the deck. But if I'd like taken maybe like one more stride, I would have hit the deck over the line.
The outdoor season, you had a very good year and made your first world final at the World Championships. And obviously, just talk about that race, and you know, it was the arrival of Casa Semenya. Obviously, Jenny won a medal. Was that a big race to be a part of?
It was so sad because I was carrying injuries, and I think this is another part of the welfare of athletes. And when you're in the system, it's almost like you need to justify all this investment we've put in you. And I felt like no one was really taking my injury seriously. You know, just things like not being able to have a scan until this season had ended. And I remember after, I don't know if it was brought on by the fall, but you know, I did have some repercussions from it. And I remember going to warm weather training the following March, and I just couldn't walk in the mornings. I had really bad like tendonitis in my knees, and I think I just sort of popped my rib cage out of place, and I was just like that for a while. So basically, when things are out of line, it affects, you know, all your joints and things. So I just found that my knees were so painful, and I literally would get to the track, I'd have to walk, then eventually jog, and then run. And some days I couldn't run at all, so we'd be on the bike. And I feel like the system just would maintain these injuries rather than, saying, okay, well, let's rest here. It was more like, we brought you on this camp, so, we need to get you back as quickly as possible. So I did have some like PRP injections by the time I got back, and that seemed to work. And then, you just get stitched back together basically. But it's like, what is the cost of that? And I think by the time I got to Berlin, it was just my mechanics weren't quite the same. So I was just, I was very proud of myself to make the championship final, but I would have loved to contend. And also when I watch how I ran back, my mind always knew what I needed, where I needed to be and what I needed to do, but my body just was lagging. And that's what happens when you're running, when you're not 100%, because it plays on you physically and mentally. And I just couldn't motor like I used to. So I'm glad I went to the championship. It's nice to be a world finalist, but it's just a shame that I wasn't at my best.
Yeah, so was it a case of like, because you're on funding and stuff, you need to be top 8 to prove your worth, but then if you're injured, it's a bit of a double-edged sword, really, isn't it? You can't really give it your all in a final when you're not 100%.
Exactly. I think it's just, something I feel like athletes sometimes lack is that self-awareness and that knowing what pain is what. We're always told to push through and be strong, and in my case, don't be a jelly donut, one coach told me once. And I have a ridiculously high pain threshold because I grew up with a lot of adversity, so I just needed to do what I needed to do. I had contracts to think about. I needed, you've got people in your ear. No one's really asking, but how painful is it? Or, they're just thinking about performance. They're thinking about their careers. And, it's kind of the start. I didn't really see it at first. I think my body did let me get away with a lot, but you're just a pawn in like this bigger picture. So in hindsight, there's a lot of things that I would have done differently, starting with listening to my body more and saying no. I think every time you try to defy things, or there was a real resistance and kickback. So essentially I was probably just scared. I didn't know what was going to happen if I didn't put myself on the line.
And did those injuries knock into 2010? How was that year for you?
Yeah, so I feel like 2010 was a bit of a quiet year. I started my training a little bit later going into the winter, so came out of it a bit later. So I remember by Barcelona, I was not very race ready. I'd done quite a bit of training. It's the first time I'd worked with Dan Path, and he was quite rigorous in my return to running schedule. And I just remember him making me do ankling, and like I had to work from 10 times 100 meters all the way to 10 times 400 meters ankling. Now that, if you can do that, you are ready to run. And he's probably the only coach that has really put that in place. It's always just like, get back as quick as you can, which is not the way to do it. So yeah, I was, again, it was just like happy to make the team because, it was a race against the clock. The Europeans are always tough because it's usually the winner of each heat. So I took it out like I always do, but it just didn't pay off. And I think there were a few cheating Russians in there. So
yeah, I think I've written down that 3 of those 8 in your heat were banned since. So
I could have been in the final, and I probably could have got medal.
Yeah, hindsight.
You can see the decade that I was coming into. It was just marred with a lot of drugs and scandals, and this has its effect as well because you're just constantly pushing yourself against these unrealistic markers. And I remember we'd have these conversations, Aya and I, like, how are we going to beat the Russians? And it was like, we were creative and all this stuff, but the truth was you needed to be on drugs, and that wasn't going to happen.
So how much were you aware of it going on? Did you other athletes? Did you discuss like, where did they come from, or is there always those gossip rumors or not?
Me personally, I was not, as you can hear, I was not aware of very much. I was just running. You obviously hear people saying, the Russians this and the Russians are dirty and they all are on drugs. But you think it's just people being a bit petty or jealous. And then they tell you a few of the characteristics to look out for. And, some of them act a bit coy. I think it was the next year where I had my own kind of, oh, actually, there's a bit suspect. And that was talking about the 2011 indoors Europeans. But yeah, no, you just need to kind of focus on the job that you have in hand. And, you know, you hear the stories, but you don't want it to be true. You know, you really don't, because it's like, why are they here? Why are they getting through? How are they getting through? Who's allowing this? And so you're just working as hard as you can to try and beat them. I always used to say, well, they need drugs to run with me, basically.
And you mentioned the European indoors there in 2011, and that was an interesting chance. You just squeezed out the heats, and then just squeezed into the semis, and then into the final. And as you said, you know, maybe suspicious there, but you were officially again crossed the line fifth. And then later it was declared that the winner was banned, and Jenny Meadows got the gold medal. And then a few years later, I'll find the tweet. I was on Twitter and I saw somebody tweet that the other Russian had been suspected of doping. I think it's Yulia Rozanova was found to have doped.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I tweeted saying, "Oh, does this mean Marilyn Okoro has a medal?" And I tagged you in it, and you were just like, "Oh my god,
I know."
So yeah, it was very weird that social media, and I was able to tag you and tell you that you had a medal.
I know, I appreciate you. Indoors for me is always kind of a really important time, because it gives me an indicator of where I need to go before the outdoors. So I'm not always in the like pristine shape. I don't think anyone really just plans for an indoor season. It's always like a springboard into the outdoor season. So that year, I think, you know, I'd done quite a bit of trying to make up for the winter before. I'd done quite a lot of heavy work. And, you know, we were just using it as training. And I felt pretty good. I wasn't as sharp as I normally would be for indoor season, but that was okay. So I was just enjoying the rounds. But I just remember being in the final in the call room just before and thinking, who the hell is this girl? Like, where's she come from? Like, we had no recollection. I've never seen her before. She's got this super fast time. And then, what was the other girl called again?
Yeah, you had Ziranova won the gold and then was stripped, and then Rozanova got the bronze and was stripped. So
yeah, she just looked petrified in the call room, like no joke. Like, I was getting to the point where I was going to pull out Google Translate and ask her if she was okay. She just was shaking. And I was like, this is more than just nerves. And that's the first time I thought something's up. Obviously, I just parked it, you know, so you go and race, and okay, great, that was what I thought was going to happen. But the way the girl had gone past Jenny, because I knew Jenny was in amazing shape, the way she kicked past her to win, I just thought, that's insane. So that's the first time I literally, in my head, have questioned before my eyes, they're taking drugs. And then obviously it was right. Like, listen to your intuition. Sometimes I just think, oh, I don't want to believe it, but believe it, because actually this is the world we're in, and this is elite sport, and some people are willing to win at all costs. And unfortunately, that was what they were willing to do. But yeah, it was a great championships, and it felt really good to get that. It's kind of my first individual kind of big medal.
Yeah, but do you feel like in hindsight, again, that would have been something that maybe would have brought you up in more conversations and selection meetings and things like that?
I think it would have definitely helped me going into 2012 in terms of, you know, my sort of position as an elite athlete, and, you know, strengthen sponsorship bonds, and, you know, strengthen my case for 2012. It definitely would have changed my trajectory. I needed that medal, in fact, that is a defining moment, because it's kind of when everything started to go downhill. Not necessarily with my running and my, you know, physically, but in terms of the professional side, a lot of deliberation. I think I was in between contracts, and just kind of how things panned out with selection in 2012. I feel like if I had that medal, it would have, you know, the way the federation is, it would have definitely strengthened my case.
As we saw in 2011, again, like, I think Jenny missed the final in Daegu because of someone cheated, and then she overtrained, and then that caused her to miss 2012 as well. And we've seen that effect it's a ripple effect. It affects so many other people other than the ones that lose out on the medals.
Absolutely. Like even you just saying right there that there's three of them in my heat, that was an impact, you know. And there definitely is this ripple effect, and it's affecting way more than just what people see in terms of our performance on the track. It's livelihoods, you know, it's how am I going to pay my rent next month? And, you know, and then obviously there's the whole confidence and self-esteem and, you know, just you kind of go into that survival mode. And there's only so many kind of kicks you can take, you know, because we're human first. I think some people forget sometimes.
Yeah, and then just talking about Daegu, did you have to run again at the day after trials or something? I can't remember what happened there.
Yeah, not the day after trials. Actually, that was my favorite race. Everyone said, what's the best race or you're most proud of? I just feel like it was always such a struggle to like make the team, irrespective whether I was running 158 or whether I was running 202. It was always, you know, you need to prove 10 times more that you're going to get selected. And that was one such season. It was a bit up and down. I didn't realize it, but I was really struggling with my mental health. And I have very little memories of Daegu, not going to lie. But to qualify, I had run the time, but I was just outside it. So it was actually Crystal Palace on a Friday. I ran 1:59:80. I think we needed 81 and I ran 85, something like that. And this is how pedantic they were. They're like, no, it's not the time, even though no one else had it. So AO being AO was like, I've got an idea, Maz. And I was like, when he has these ideas, you're like, brace yourself. So there was there was a league match at Lee Valley the next morning. And he said, why don't you just go and run? I know you can bleep, bleep, run the time. You don't need any pacemakers, just go and run. And I was just like, that is so insane. I love it. So got back to Chingford where I lived. Obviously, Lee Valley's up the road. Woke up, went down to the track. Obviously, the Premiership people just have to put their 2 cents in. So Tara Bird was my training partner at the time. She was going to pace me around in the A race. They said, no one can pace you. I was like, okay, put me in the B race. I'm sure no one wants to go through 58 anyway. So I literally had to run in the B stream. And I was so focused. Okay, get this. I was so focused on just smashing this race. I forgot to brake. That's like how in the zone I was. And I remember Tara was standing at 200 and she was like, you can cut in now. I just heard it and I was like, oh yeah. And I was just like, this is the power of the mind. And I was like, I am running the time today. And I did it and it was so windy. I don't know if you've ever been to Lee Valley, but that is just wind trap. And I remember just coming down the last 100 and I couldn't hear a thing. I could not. It was like going into a tunnel of wind and it was just silence. And then crossing the line and the damn clock was like 1:59 point and you're like waiting for what it's going to flash up. And then it flashed up 5 and I was like, that's the first time I've had like such strong emotions after a race because I was just so desperate to run the time. I was like, oh, who needs to go to, the Diamond League when you can just do it in Lee Valley?
That is one of your best races then, just doing that solo run.
My best race, winning by a 12-second margin. I've also lost races like with ridiculous margins, but I'm very proud of that race.
And then so Daegu semi-finals again, all 3 Russians in that champs were banned. So another blight on the sport of doping there. But yeah,
boring now, isn't it?
I know. But then moving on to your next defining moment, which you just put as 2012 doom. So just describe the whole of 2012 and what led to you. Well, you went to the Olympics in London, but only in the relay. You weren't. We controversially overlooked for the 800, where there were 3 or 4 of you that had the A standards. Lindsay Sharp had the B standards, but they took her on that, and it seemed, even from the outside, it seemed a bit bizarre that we had this many athletes. It was a home champ, so we didn't send a full team. But what I found as well was that there was the European champs that year, the first time they did that before the Olympics, and that was seen as a chance for like Gemma Simpson to go and get the time and things like that. But because you were British number 1, you didn't even get to go to the Europeans to then prove yourself as a championship performer like Lindsay did, who ended up winning the gold and then going to the champs. So just describe your emotions throughout that roller coaster year.
Roller coaster year. I mean, I was in shape. Like, you know how you want to come into an Olympic year, which is hopefully how I'm going to be next year. It was just all coming together, and I just had first time around with Beijing, it was George's dream implanted in me. This time it was like me. I was like, I'm going to 2012. So just to have it shattered like that was crazy. And I'm very self-deprecating. Well, I was, and critical of everything I do and say. I'm going to analyze things a billion times. So, and this is what I talk about, having that team around you and having guidance and having support in making decisions rather than just being dictated to. So at the start of the year, you've got to put your plans in, which I don't even know if I had a plan. So the coaches would discuss that. And all I remember was Charles saying that I had to focus on the 800, stop messing around with the 400s, which I don't really run that much anyway. And I needed the 400s for my 8s. So this is what I mean about just putting someone in place that doesn't really understand his athletes or the sport, to be honest. And like, what qualified him to dictate how I prepare for a time? Fair enough, you've got performance standards. That's all I need to hear from you. Unless you're willing to start to get to know me, do not comment. So nevertheless, it was Olympic year. Everyone's just trying to put their foot right, and we did that. I raced a heck of a lot of 800s, which isn't really my norm, prior to trials. But I was in a rhythm. I was running 159. I always typically open with 202 just to get my rhythm. And then once I run sub 2 or 2 minutes, I'll generally hold that for a while. So I think I'd just done one race too many before trials. Then I had that sort of exchange with Charles at Lee Valley, which, again, I think he was just dealing with stuff that was nothing to do with me and just came across really, really rude. And I didn't appreciate his sort of shouting at me in public. And with me, I'm either going to shout back or run away and cry. So I just thought, let me just run away. And I was going up to Birmingham for trials, like they were the next day. So it was just a very emotionally charged time for me. And I just was I wanted it too much, if that makes sense. Stupidly windy day, terrible combination. I think if it wasn't as windy, Okoro could have hung on and salvaged something and not finished so low down. But it just was as the disaster it was really. However, I just don't feel like out of all my performances that year, that was one bad performance, and it cost me so much more than just making the Olympics in my hometown, which is obviously major. And then again, like the inconsistencies and just being told stupid things like let the girls get a chance to get the time. And so when I talk about Black Lives Matter and this systematic racism, systemic even, this is what I'm talking about, because there was always one rule for me, and I didn't have your Shalenas and Adele Tracy's then. They were just coming through. So it was like, why isn't it the same for everyone? Why do I have to let other people get the chance? Why do they get second, third, fourth, fifth chances? Why do they get to go on a B standard and I don't? Getting told you've been given all these opportunities. I truly believe since 2006, I've been grafting and putting down times, things like taking pacemakers out of races because I go off too hard. They don't have to come with me. That's how I run. But I was just so different. And often it's not celebrated or accepted. And there's a lot of resistance that goes up. So in the moment, it was literally me just being like, oh man, I messed up. And you know what? If we were USA, it wouldn't even be a thing. I didn't finish in the top 3. I'm not going to the Olympics. But it's all the bureaucracy and the nonsense that goes with it. And then, you've got people saying, well, he needs to make an example of you and, he's going to teach you a lesson. And I'm just like, why? Like, what did I ever do to him? Like, you're supposed to be supporting my journey, but instead you're doing your best to sort of tear me down, and they don't understand the psychological impact that has. So yeah, it was really a weird time for me going to a championships and not setting foot on a track.
Was there any mental health support for you at all? Was there any support for you?
There were people that, throughout my career. I've had, initially EIS, sports psych. Sarah Cecil would work with me. She was lovely. And then I worked with a cognitive behavioural therapist called Donovan Pyle, he was a consultant for British Athletics, and he actually supported me quite a bit away from that, because obviously when my funding got cut, or the budget for it, he just supported me. So that was really useful for me, because I found with sports psych, they tend to just focus on the sports, which is fair enough. But with me, it was more like dealing with my emotional side of things, and how I responded to things, and dealing with difficult relationships, and navigating communication and stuff that kind of comes through you as a person, and learning how, what you do in that fight or flight mode, which would have translated into what I was doing in races and how I was responding, and also helping identify things like anxiety and later on depression. And I just remember, like, in Daegu, I remember telling the team doctor that I was struggling with anxiety and depression. He was almost like, well, suck it up, you're at the champs now. And I was like, okay. And I remember him asking me, which one is it? And I was just like, well, you're the professional, you tell me. I don't know. So yeah, it was just, in short, no, not enough, especially when you're kind of ostracized as it is, and you just kind of expected to get on with it. And for me, I didn't realize these things, like hearing you say, what you just said with the leading into Europeans and things like that. Like when I crossed the line after 2012 disastrous race, the last thing I needed was a text message to my phone saying you've been deselected from the European squad for no reason. Like they're not even thinking about what that does. That is the most crucial time. When you analyze, when you're talking about coaching athletes, the first hour after racing, you do not need to have anything like that. You don't even need to debrief the race, just concentrate on your warm down, stay in the process, be there for support, but we don't need to talk. Once emotions are down, then we can go into things. But that was the message I got. Charles was standing there with my coach, like looking all smug. It was just horrible. I wanted the ground to eat me up. And I blamed myself. It was all my fault, because I was an island all by myself. And that I never want any athlete to ever feel like that, because that is the worst feeling ever. So yeah, 2012, I was there, and I was like, you know what? I'm here. I'm going to have to use this. It's painful. I don't want to be here, but I'm here for a reason. And, my teammates did amazing, and I was there to support them. And when it was relay time, I went down with the girls. And hey, it was 2012. It was a phenomenal championships.
Yeah, just going back to the day when they obviously, so just to go back to the Europeans and all that, they didn't obviously send you you didn't get the chance to go and all of that. But then the day they announced the team not long after that, and I remember you tweeted that you were quitting, and then
yeah, knee-jerk reaction. I learned a lot about Twitter that day. Oh, I'm just so mad. Like I had smug old Charles ring me, and he just the suspense, and then he was like, I was so shocked, to be honest. I felt like I would still get the benefit of the doubt. It's like the one time I wanted to pull that card out. No. So he just sounded so pleased with himself, like, you are not going to 2012 for the 800. That's how he said it.
Wow.
And my heart just sank, and I was just like, literally just having a throw my toys out the pram moment. I was like, because I was by myself, and I was just like, no, this isn't happening. And I did tweet, I'm quitting. But I mean, I quit all the time and don't really quit, do I? So yeah, and then I deleted it. But I mean, obviously once it's out in the Twitter sphere, it's out there. And I saw it in the paper the next day.
Did you actually speak to any of the other British girls who didn't make it, like Gemma and Emma Jackson and all those? Because they obviously were in the same boat as you in a way. One person went when three could have gone.
It made no sense. No disrespect to Lindsay at all. She's obviously gone on to do great things from that, right from the get-go. But it's just being afforded that chance and that time, Anyway, I didn't speak to any of the others immediately. I think I was out in Belgium trying to sort of justify.
Well, you ran. Did you not run a national record for the 600?
Yeah,
an angry national record.
Yeah, it was the first time I ever raced the 600, and I was like, "This is my event anyway." But it was the appeals time, wasn't it? So everyone was putting in their appeals. Lindsay did reach out to me and she said, thank you for not attacking me. And I was like, well, it's not really, my argument was not don't take Lindsay, it was take me, and here's why you should take me. Because I truly believed I deserved to be there. So I wasn't going to be just bashing her. The statisticians can show all those stats things. I don't need to do that. I was just looking at this criteria, and I clearly had 5 out of 6 of this criteria, and she had 1 out of 6. So if that's your choice, fair enough.
Yeah, it was a strange chance because obviously by you not going to the Europeans, you didn't get the chance to actually prove that you were a championship performer like Lindsay did. She went there as a young athlete, almost not even chasing the time. She just went there to go to a European Championship.
Yeah.
Ended up winning a medal and winning it. And whereas like Gemma Simpson was sent there to get a time, and it was just it was just handled terribly, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, what about all my other championships? It was like, but yeah, basically he wanted to teach me a lesson, and I don't care what he says. That's what he told people. So there we go. That's what it is.
And did you actually watch the 800 in London? Because I think 1:59.4 made the final. Was that a bit?
I watched it. I watched the heats qualifying in 2:08. I was like, even when I fell indoors, I ran quicker than 2:08. When I died horrendously, I ran quicker than 2:08. It made no sense, but I had tickets. I went. My family were coming.
But then, how do you feel 2012 looking back on it now? How has it shaped your career?
So for so long, I was just like, I wish I could delete. That was my 2020 until 2020. Cancelled. But oh my God, the lessons that have come, and they've come slowly. It's taken like 8 years. It's taken that for me to get to who I am now. And that was from that, I made the knee-jerk reaction to get out of here and let's go to America.
Yeah, which is that's your next defining moment is the move to the USA. I mean, what was behind that? Because obviously you've been with AO for quite a few years, and that was working, was it, or was it not working? What did you think? Was it a knee-jerk reaction from not being selected that made you go to America?
It was just a feeling of not feeling supported. I was just like, hey, listen, you want to be there in my wins, you need to be there in the losses too. And I didn't feel supported, but with respect to AO, he was very sick and he was dealing with a lot, and perhaps just couldn't be the coach that maybe he wanted to be, or that who I needed as well. So I kind of parted ways with him that year anyway, and then it was a question of who am I going to work with next. But I didn't trust anyone in the UK. I just literally felt like no one else can coach me. So I started looking further afield. I remember Tasha Danvers was in America, and I just said, I'd heard of Dwayne Solomon. He ran the 600, that indoors, and I was like, oh, I want to train with him. And then found out his coach was Coach Gray. He was coaching Maggie Vesey at the time. So in my head, it was like, okay, that's a good fit, and obviously how he runs. And so I made the move pretty quickly. I'm very like all or nothing. Hey, let's do it. But I think I wish I just was a bit still first and researched a few more coaches. But I did get out there, and it didn't pay off how I was expecting it to performance-wise. Obviously, 2013 was a great year, but I think I was still working off my old system and just had a bit of glorified warm weather training, to be honest.
Do you feel like that was actually a little bit of a redemption season?
Absolutely, because I had so much to. Whenever you come back to a track that you've not raced well at, you're just like, oh my gosh, I need to erase that memory. And I didn't really know how I was going to run, to be honest. I was just doing new training. It was just, there was no pressure. Unfortunately, all the pressure was on Jess Judd, which again, I have major issues with how she was treated that year. And considering how much I do not enjoy running at the Nationals, that was a very enjoyable experience because it was psychologically one of the easiest championships I've ever had to run or gotten to run. And I literally got to choose and dictate. And so that's the feeling that I want to sort of feel, because I was just in control of what I did and I was only focused on what I could control. And that's a very powerful place to run from. But then when I went back, the next few years were really, really difficult. Just lots of overtraining and not quite periodizing the year correctly. And essentially he was another Charles in another form. but had more of a direct impact because he was literally giving me the workouts to do every day and had that direct day-to-day contact with me. And it just wasn't working, but it was almost like, okay, well, it's something you're doing. I feel like I didn't have that team. I didn't feel like, when there was a problem, I had to figure it out on my own and come back when I had the solution, and then we would resume. And that's not how it should work. And I just thought this whole time I'm just always running either injured or overtrained or tired. Like, if I could just get it right, like, come on, not too old yet. But also it was important for me to come back and be near family and people that knew Maz and didn't care about my running.
So how long were you in the States for?
2013 to 2017. So yeah, I went out in 2013 April until end of June 2017, and I came back. But in that time, I was working at the University of Central Florida, which I loved. I was director of operations. I had a nice little role as sort of team manager. And I was that go-between between the student athletes and the staff, which was a lovely position to be in. And that's how I kind of found my heart for mentoring. I did come over for the Commonwealths, and I met a good friend called Alex, who is the founder of the Mintridge Foundation. And, she really kept me linked with the sport. And just, when I came over for holidays or like Christmas and stuff, I would do as many visits to schools as I could, and just inspiring kids to keep going, chasing their dreams. And, some of them may not have aspirations to be Olympians, but it's all about the mindset. And so you can achieve anything you set your mind to. It also was starting to sort of tickle in the back of my mind that I need to lead on my coaching, and I need to tell, I'm the expert of me, and there isn't anyone else like me, to be honest, in the UK. So I could be setting something up for the future 400, 800 runner. And that is what drives me now.
And that's obviously, I guess, the only other athlete I can think of who transitioned from 4 to 800 is Jenny Meadows. And how did that coaching relationship with her and Trevor, well, her husband Trevor, obviously, who coached her throughout her career, and now how has that helped you?
Yeah, so Jenny, I would definitely say, was the closest. I loved that Jenny extended that hand to me. She's just fantastic. I have so much love for her and admiration. She just helps so many people, and we just happened to meet at an event. I was there for the Mintridge Foundation, and it was like this giant sports day, and they said this other 800-meter runner was there, and I was like, who? This is my patch. But I was really happy to see her, and she was just sort of asking all these questions. And obviously she's retired in that time, and I was like, what's retired life really like? And I think I gestured saying, I need to join you. And so she's like, what are you doing? You look really in good shape. And I think I always look fine, but what's going on the inside is a whole other ball game sometimes. So I said, you know what, I have recently decided, I've recently got the medal, I've recently decided that I still want to run. However, I don't know who's going to coach me. I don't know who I trust to coach me. I don't know what I'm doing, basically. I need to start again. So she invited me up to Wigan to stay with her and Trevor, meet the group. And I don't know what happens when you come up north, but you just fall in love with the people and the community. And that's definitely what happened. And I think it's something that I crave, just having a strong community around me. And it was just I've moved my whole life. I'm so nomadic, and it was just the easiest move. There was always someone to help with something, and I just felt like I was getting a massive hug. So I really enjoyed it. It was great being here. But sometimes when you stop, then everything starts to catch up with you, and sometimes it can be a bit of a bulldozer moment as well. And that's kind of what happened for me. I think I had a phenomenal first 3 months with the group, but then it was like, okay, I've got a training group, I've got a coach, but what else do I need? What are these basic needs? I need somewhere to live. I need income. So I just was trying to do so much all the time, and I just got exhausted. And I think by the January of 2019, mentally I was just fried. And it's the first time I started to lose, interest in life. Wasn't suicidal at all. It was just, I just want to stay in bed all day. Running just seemed so hard. Like, I can't even walk to the shower right now, let alone putting one foot in the other to do a run along the canal. Fortunately, in the group, we have some incredible parents, because a lot of my training partners are really young and I tend to be more friends with their parents. And Liv, who's a pain nurse, just, she spent some time with me and she'd come and check on me. And her husband is a GP, so she kind of invited me over for a Sunday roast, and I was like, okay, there's food involved. I was just chatting, and she just said, do you want to have a private conversation with Andy and, honestly tell him how you're feeling? And I did. And he was like, well, it sounds like, you've had so much upheaval and change and a few, real like big things happen. And the whole time you just kept pushing through it. So it's quite natural how you're feeling. And he was like, if you had come into my surgery, I'd say you were depressed. And I thought, oh, is that what it is? And so then I just started that journey. I went to see my GP, and then they were like, oh, well, we'll recommend you go on some antidepressants. And I was willing to do it. I mean, there's a lot of stigma around taking medications, and I felt like my circumstances needed to change, and I knew I needed to have resolve with things that had gone wrong. And one of the big things that came up was 2012. And I hadn't processed it, accepted it, moved on from it. So that's kind of the process that I started so really recently, to be honest. As amazing as this journey is into elite sport, it's very cutthroat, it's very crucial, and it has very real impacts on people's lives. And I also was really frustrated and getting upset with friends that were retiring, and they just were walking away from the sport broken. And I was like, I'm not going out like this. And there's a lot of our athletes that are making the team and working part-time or full-time. Not everybody's funded, they can't be. And also just inviting athletes to explore what else they love doing, what else is there to them, who are they beyond their sport. So yeah, I'm pretty driven by that, but I've still got a little job to do next year.
Yeah, well, yeah. What is next? What is next for Marilyn Okoro?
So 2020 should have been my next defining moment, right?
Yes, your fifth and final defining moment is 2020, and explain why.
So I'm really big on putting things out there. Once it's out there, you got to do it, right? So I just had this 2020 vision. Like, I was hashtagging that like crazy. I was like, 2020 vision. And I remember just thinking, I am so freaking unfit. Like, it's going to take a miracle. And I remember I'm, a woman of faith. And I said, God, if you want me at that next Olympics, you're going to make it happen. So I just remember when COVID hit, and I was like, wow, does this mean there's a whole nother, because I just felt like I was starting to get my head around to training again. And then it all stopped. And then there was a bit of iffiness about whether the Olympics was going on. And I thought, oh, I just need a few more months. And then it hit, and I was just like, oh, careful what you pray for. But, January 2020, I started this job because I felt like I needed, obviously I need to pay my bills because money was a massive stress for me. I had sacrificed everything to take myself to America, and it was like a big gamble. It didn't work. So this job for the Brick, which is a charity based in Wigan and the Northwest, and we support people in crisis and transition through homelessness. And I was so happy when I got it, because there's kind of this element of, I've been an athlete all my life. Like, I think it's probably like my second proper interview in my life. And you're just trying to think, okay, am I good enough for this? You're so used to just your performance, dictating whether or not you've made the cut. Whereas, I had to, I'm good at speaking, but what if I just didn't fit? It made me realize that, obviously we do have transferable skills. Everything I've been through and learned in life, I could bring into this role. So I'm duty officer in the crisis team, and I help facilitate the running of the department. And so we predominantly work with the entrenched rough sleepers, but also anyone in crisis will come to us and we will try and support them. So, I just support the outreach team. I do some triaging myself. And it's really just, getting into the mindset at the end of the day and giving them these coping skills and empowering them to want to change their situation. I think the fact that they walk through those doors, they've realized, that's a massive step. That they need help and they can ask for it, and knowing, and that's something I struggled with for so long, accepting the fact that I needed help. And that's such a big step of bravery. Lee Harriers recently gave me a key to train. I train at odd hours, so it's like, I don't clash with anyone. I have a whole track to myself. So I just feel like all the things I felt like were barriers to me performing ever again have just been smashed through. And that is kind of the testimony in my life. Like, there's always a way, as long as you want it bad enough and you're willing to never give up until you've got it. It can happen. So mentally, I'm in a good place, and now I just need the body to catch up.
And you said already that you want to leave the sport on your terms, and what would that be for you? What would be your goal to finish on?
Yeah, so, you know, I really, really want to make Tokyo 2021 now. And, you know, I don't know how that's going to look. You know, I'm loving putting in the elements of the 400 that I need to. Obviously, I feel like I've got unfinished business with the 800. So however it happens, I need to be on that plane to Tokyo. But I just want to get back into competing and enjoying it and just using my experience. I want to use all of me. Like, I feel like I've just been running half-mast and I've achieved some incredible stuff, but man, to actually understand, you know, how to run would be great, and, you know, take that into my tactics and already the tenacity that I have. But also just knowing that I've given everything, and just being able to say, you know what, thank you. It's been a journey, but, you know, I'm happy to stop now. And that's the feeling that every retired athlete says they get to that point. And I haven't got to that point yet. So that's what I'm hoping to get to after Tokyo 2021.
When I finish this podcast, I like to ask like 3 major questions. First of all, do you feel like the lows of your career have helped the highs and vice versa?
Absolutely. The lows, once you're so low, the only way is up. So they definitely set the atmosphere for the highs. And it's just about, you know, what you tell yourself when you are in that low and how you respond to it. I always say it's not about what happens to you, but it's how you respond to it. And so for me, someone that's grown up, you know, with so much against me in the beginning, I already had that natural sort of inclination to always want to bounce back and come back. And, you know, it doesn't matter how many knocks I get, you got to keep getting up. And so I was pretty well equipped for sport, but again, there's only so much you can take. And I think sometimes some lessons I wasn't learning quite as quickly as others. Some things were in my control, a lot of them were not. So ever grateful to the lessons, because they actually make you so tough. And I'm just proud to kind of be this resilient young woman that I am today because of the lessons sport has, or the blows it's dealt me. It's taught me so much that I would take into life and whatever I do post track and field.
If you could pick one of the 5 moments you had, which was, just to recap, going to boarding school at 10, the 2008 Olympic trials, the 2012 disaster, moving to the USA, and 2020. And I'm going to give you a 6th option of the future. Which would you say was the defining moment?
Can I just have one?
Yeah, just the one. Just the one.
Just one. I have to say it would be that 10 years old going to that boarding school, because that is where it all began. And that is where, you know, Marilyn, I guess my sporting persona was born. You know, it was, and it was just such a blessing. And it's so, I can't explain how I ended up in that scenario, and to meet the coach that I met, and for him to, because if I didn't have that great start, I don't think I would have gone on into sport. So it was definitely the defining moment, like coming from Stonebridge, you know, literally all I knew was no, and you're not going to achieve this, you're not going to do that. But then, you know, at 10 years old, who knew I was going to be Olympic bronze medalist? So definitely that would have to be my defining moment.
If there's one moment in your career that you'd like do over or do differently, what would that be?
Definitely Olympic trials in 2012.
Yeah, well, I mean, what would you have done differently? Was it just different tactics?
I would have set my butt in the back. I would have tucked on in, and then I would have just ran past them the last 150. Yeah, like I did in 2013, you know? That's what I would have done.
And what would you say if you had to give some advice to your younger self? What would you tell yourself?
I would tell myself, Marilyn, you are limitless. You are limitless. This is what I say to people all the time. Like, there are no limits apart from the ones you place upon yourself. You know, it's not really about what other people think. Never let their opinions dictate who you are or what you do. But yeah, you are absolutely limitless, and just dream big. Dream as big as you want, because, you know, I don't know if I would have maybe had a different mindset if the Olympic dream was my own from a very young age. But, you know, I'm glad George kind of had that idea and had that vision, and I just then had to catch up with confidence. But I speak to so many youngsters, and they want to go to the Olympics, or they want to be an architect, and they're dreaming massive, and they can absolutely do all of that as long as they are giving the right support, giving the right opportunities, and exposed to the right culture. So yeah, limitless you.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much for joining me on the show today, and yeah, all the best of luck for the future.
Thanks so much, Chris. It's been a great trip down memory lane.
Well, thank you very much for listening to the very first episode of My Defining Moments, and thank you to Marilyn for being such a great guest. I'll be back soon with more My Defining Moments, where another sports person will be telling me all about their career. Don't forget to subscribe to the My Defining Moments podcast on Spotify, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. You can also follow me on social media at ChrisBrownSport, and if you're a sports person and you want to be a guest on the show, you can contact me on email, chris@chrisbrownsport.com. Thanks for listening, and see you again soon.